and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and these are the top diabetes stories and headlines of the past 7 days. In the News is brought to you by the T1D Exchange. This is such a great group. T1D Exchange is a nonprofit organization, and they are dedicated to improving outcomes for everybody in the T1D population. Our top story very early on here, but some progress in oral insulin for type 1. A team at University of British Columbia has developed a different kind of tablet. You don't swallow it. Instead, it dissolves when placed between the gum and the cheek. This method delivered all the insulin to the liver without wasting or decomposing any insulin along the way. That is a very big change from earlier studies and methods. The oral tablets absorb after about half an hour and last for up to 4 hours. Long way to go. No human trials yet. Personal connection, though, in this study. The lead researcher on the project has a father with type 1. The type 2 diabetes drug dapagliflozin might also be used to help people with heart failure. A new study at Brigham and Women's Hospital showed that dapagliflozin, sold under the brand name Farxiga, reduced the risk of a cardiovascular death or worsening heart failure, regardless of ejection fraction. Ejection fraction is a term that basically refers to how much blood is pumped out by the left ventricle of the heart each time it contracts. And that is important because this drug has already been shown to help people who have the reduced pumping. So this could help a lot more people. Big study here, more than 12,000 folks with lots of ages and races, and the benefits were consistent throughout. I hesitate to bring this study up. I don't have all of the information, but it has gotten a lot of attention this week. So I'll talk about it and we'll follow up. It shows tight control of blood sugar in teens with type 1 may help reduce, quote, the disease's damaging effects on the brain. This was a small study from Nemours Children's Health, Jacksonville, and Stanford University School of Medicine. They didn't release any numbers here that I saw. In other words, it's not clear what they mean by tight control or at what level, A1C, time in range, they're referring to for brain issues. Their findings do indicate that automated hybrid closed-loop systems work really well and that better glucose control can improve brain structure and function in teens with type 1. I've reached out to this group, and we are working on getting more information in a future episode. Very early on here as well, but an Indiana startup says they have a potentially game-changing type 1 drug in development. As you know, in type 1, the body's immune system causes destruction of beta cells, and they eventually stop producing insulin. These researchers say their models show they can take what were thought to be dead beta cells, which are, quote, actually sleeping, and increase their insulin secretion and basically get them back to a functional state, end quote. They are focusing on a calcium imbalance within the beta cells and designing molecules to correct that, ultimately returning the pancreas to a working and healthy state. JDRF has given them a big grant for a 2-year project, hopefully getting them to clinical trials. People with type 2 might face a substantially increased risk of heart failure if they take ibuprofen or some other type of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, also known as NSAIDs, according to a new Danish study. Short-term NSAID use increased risk of hospitalization for heart failure by 43% in people with type 2, but no previous heart problems. This is a large but preliminary study presented at the European Society of Cardiology's annual meeting. The risk increased even more in people with type 2 over the age of 80 or who had high blood sugar levels. Those who'd never used an NSAID before actually had the worst reaction. So the upshot here, if you have type 2, talk to your doctor before taking any pain medication, although these researchers say acetaminophen, Tylenol, should be safe to use. Back to the news in just a moment, but first, the T1D Exchange Registry is a research study. You've heard me talk about this. This is so easy to do, and it helps so much. They conduct these studies online. The platform is open to adults and kids with type 1 in the U.S. Your personal information remains confidential, and once you're enrolled, you can complete annual surveys and have the opportunity to sign up for other studies on specific topics related to type 1. This can speed up the discovery and development of new treatments and technologies and generate evidence to support policy or insurance changes that help the T1D community. The registry is now open and available on the T1D Exchange website. It's so simple to use. For more information or to register, go to t1dregistry.org/Stacey. That is t1dregistry.org/STACEY. A couple of weeks ago, we told you about The Human Trial. This is a new documentary by Lisa Hepner. She lives with type 1, and back in 2011, she and her husband heard about stem cell therapy. They were given unprecedented real-time access to a clinical trial, and this movie is a journey with the patients and the scientists who put themselves on the line to be first. It was shown in limited release, and now in partnership with Beyond Type 1 and JDRF, they are offering the film for free. You are urged to make a donation to JDRF when you click over. You will see that there is an option, though, to select 0, so they really mean this. The donation is completely optional. Next week, we've got a great episode all in the real world. I spoke to a panel of moms of kids with type 1 and a young adult using the system. And then you'll hear from Insulet's Director of Medical Affairs addressing the questions that come up in the panel. So this is an all-in-one, supersized episode about Omnipod 5. And this past episode, the one out right now, is with my son, Benny, talking about what it was like to spend 8 weeks away at a non-diabetes camp without any remote monitoring from us. He is 17. Spoiler alert. He loved it. It was really hard on me. You can listen wherever you get your podcasts. He does a nice job of answering a lot of the questions that you sent in. You had so many questions for him, and he's really open and honest about it. And that's it for In the News this week. If you like it, please share it. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you back here soon.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.